Is vulnerability your strength or their weapon against you? You heard it. Be open, be authentic, show your weakness. It sounds so empowering. It feels so inspiring until it backfires. Perhaps the world would be a better place if vulnerability really were a strength. Perhaps. Unlikely, but in the real world, it's a disadvantage. And in this video, we'll unpack where and when that idea went wrong. So let's begin. But before we continue, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, share it with someone who's going through a tough time, or leave a comment on what you liked or disliked. Today, vulnerability is often marketed as strength or courage. The main voice behind this is Brené Brown. She's brought a lot of attention to this topic, but her definitions are inconsistent and misleading. To be fair, she adds a lot of value. She gives good advice on what to share, what not to share, and how leaders can keep boundaries. But her core framing creates confusion. She treats all emotions as equally good and powerful. That's not just inaccurate, it's harmful. Not all emotions are equal. Some are healthy, some are not. Mixing them together leads to poor emotional management. Yes, she's right that we are vulnerable during uncertainty, risk, and exposure. But vulnerability itself is not an emotion. It's a set of beliefs and thoughts that weaken us. Change the beliefs, and the vulnerability shrinks. And yes, showing vulnerability can sometimes build trust or connection. But let's be clear, it can just as easily backfire, creating damage, harm, and even more vulnerability. Now let's test the validity of some of the quotes from her book. To feel is to be vulnerable. Believing vulnerability is weakness is believing feeling is weakness. Wrong. Feelings aren't the same as vulnerability. People with healthy negative feelings like concern instead of panic and disappointment instead of shame are actually less vulnerable. Vulnerability comes from irrational beliefs and thoughts that generate unhealthy emotions. Now let's take a look at her take on courage. Vulnerability is the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. No, vulnerability is not courage. Courage is when you act despite vulnerability, not because of it. Big difference. This is the trick of the modern narrative. It makes vulnerability sound so inspiring, but if we want to manage it strategically, we need to separate the useful from the misleading. So one of the ways to counter vulnerability is to set courage as one of your top values, like Stoics did. And this will ensure you act despite discomfort, in spite of fear, and despite vulnerability. Now look at this definition of vulnerability, or rather the lack of one. Vulnerability minus boundaries is not vulnerability. That's not a definition. That's circular logic, defining something only by what it is not. And the book never defines vulnerability. Instead, it piles on claims that vulnerability is courage or emotion or strength. That's simply wrong. But notice these four words: confession, manipulation, desperation, shock, and awe. What does this reveal? That when people are vulnerable, they can be deeply dysfunctional. It also shows how reckless and harmful sharing vulnerability can be. Not only does it put you at a disadvantage, it can pull others into a manipulative spiral where everyone loses. Now look at this definition. Let's now look at the popular culture's take on vulnerability. In her song Vulnerable, Selena Gomez shows how vulnerability can play out in personal relationships, sometimes as manipulations, sometimes as an unfair advantage. Wrap your arms around my weakness. If the only other option is letting go, I'll stay vulnerable. Now, what kind of relationship is that? Certainly not a healthy or a functional one, given the unhealthy dependency and manipulation. But here's the bigger picture. You don't have to stay vulnerable to achieve your aims. You can reduce it. You can manage it strategically. And when you do, you become a better partner, not just to them, to yourself. So what triggered this modern wave? Why did we go from one bad oversimplification straight into another? The old view was feelings are weakness, no emotions at work. The new view is lead with vulnerability, your superpower. Both are extremes, both are wrong. The healthy middle isn't black or white, it's nuanced. It's about seeing yourself and others clearly and positioning yourself wisely in that environment. That's not censorship, and it's not emotional dumping. It's emotional common sense. How many times have you opened up, people nodded politely, and then used it against you? I see it all the time in coaching and in life. Smart professionals burned by bad advice. Vulnerability is your strength, your superpower. Here's the hard truth. Vulnerability can only build trust if it's calculated, measured, boundaried, timely, and context appropriate. And even then, it's not guaranteed. Vulnerability is not strength, it's a weakness. Gambling with weakness is not a good idea. Odds are terrible and against you. Thank you for staying with me until the end of the second video. If this helped you see that the idea of vulnerability as strength is unfounded and harmful, please stay with me, because in the next video we'll move to solutions, starting with lessons on acceptance and what to do when others exploit your vulnerabilities. And if you like this video, please like, share, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And I'll see you in the next video, just on the left.